feel I have done amazing things. I am so grateful for my life. I have been places and met people beyond my wildest dreams, and it's not over yet. So, and not the least of which is to be right here, right now with you, because I know each one of you, you're here to bless me. I mean, I have summoned you for my own selfish reasons, and that is to be blessed by you. I'd like to start today by just sharing a story. Oh, I blushed. I'm blushed because it's true. There was a Zen monk who lived with his one-eye student in a monastery. And one day a visiting monk was passing by, and he stopped and he said, "I would like to study with you." And the master monk said, "Well," he said, "I want you to make sure you belong here, that you know you belong here. So go find my student and have a conversation with him in any manner that you choose, and then come back and tell me whether or not you are ready to live here." So the visitor goes out into the garden and he sees the student meditating. And he decides that he will have a conversation with him with sign language to show him how clever he is. So he goes up and he gently taps him on the shoulder and he holds up one finger. And the one-eyed student looked back at him and held up two. And then the visitor held up 3 fingers and the student held up his fist. And the visitor ran back to the monk and he said, "Oh," he said, "I do not belong here. The enlightenment of your student far exceeds me, and I can see that this is not my place." And the monk master said, "Well, tell me, what did you experience? What happened?" And he said, "Well," he said, "I held up 1 finger representing the Buddha, and he held up 2 representing the Buddha and his teaching, the Dharma. And I held up 3 to say the Buddha, the Dharma, and Shanghai, the community. And he held up his fist, which symbolized all 3 are one. I left immediately knowing this was not my place." And he turned and he ran out the door. Shortly thereafter, here comes the one-eyed student in. He goes, "Where's that scoundrel? Where did he go?" And the master said, "Well, tell me what happened." He said, "I was meditating and I was interrupted by this person who held up 1 finger saying that I had 1 eye. He says, "I immediately held up 2 to say, 'Congratulations, you have 2. And then he held up 3 fingers saying that, 'Well, between us, we have 3. He says, "And then I held up my fist to punch him in the face, and he ran away." So that is a funny story. But it represents something that I really have come to see as very profound. Not only do we give meaning in our lives to everything that happens to us, but that meaning comes from a context that we have about our life. So today I want to share with you some key ways of perceiving your life that may allow a shift to occur and for more joy and more happiness and more peace to really be your experience. You know, you've heard, I'm sure, to change your life, you need to change your thinking. Well, I have seen that to change your life, you need to change your seeing, because we see what it is we think and believe. So the first C that I want to share with you is context. And yes, these are all C words too. Nothing like a double vision, you know. So the first is context. What is your context for living? Another word for context would be your worldview. Do you see your world as friendly? Do you see the universe as supportive of you, is working in your favor? Or do you see the world as neutral, really doesn't care? It's whatever you decree it to be, and that's the vibration of it? Or do you even see that the world is separate from you? It is not necessarily your friend, and you have to work really hard to have enough money, to have enough peace, to have enough joy. What is your world view and your context for living? Now, the monk who saw the enlightened one was far more enlightened than the student who had a completely different context for living. Unity gives us a context for living, and it was right here. We just affirmed it together. And that is, there's only one presence and one power. And that one presence and one power is what we call God, but there are many names for it. My personal definition of late is it's the unified field of intelligence, everywhere present, whose vibration is love. It permeates every single thing. There is no spot where God is not. There is only God. And this divine spirit has intelligence, and it has a vibration of love. So that's my context for living. Part of that context for living is Unity's second principle, being that we are individualized expressions of this presence. Because if there's only God, it only stands to reason that that must include us, right? I mean, how can we not be that? We are not the all of God, but all that God is within us. I think these two realizations are foundational to living a spiritual life and to actually having a shift in one's reality to where we can begin stepping into the empowerment that is our spiritual birthright. It is the oneness of the presence of God and ourselves as a spiritual being having a human experience. Teilhard de Chardin said that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. But most people's perception, worldview, and context is just the opposite. I am a human being, and I so want to have a spiritual experience. You know, I so want to feel God. I so want to see an angel. I so want to know something is greater than me as a human being. So it takes a lot of courage to stand in the space and say, I am spirit. I am spirit expressing here, and I'm having a human experience. Because I am spirit expressing here, there is absolutely nothing in this world that is against me or that can harm me. Do I have experiences sometimes that are unpleasant? Absolutely. And I'll probably have them even if I learn to levitate. It's, you know, they're not going to go away. The difference is, what is the context through which I view them? How do I view these experiences that I'm having? So the next C word, context comes first, and then we have content. What is the content of your life? The content consists of all those experiences that you are having. It consists of your environment, where you live, where you work. Everything that you perceive to be in this world is the content of it. It's how God is showing up for you. So now we're into Unity's third principle, which is the law of mind action. With our consciousness, with the thoughts that we hold, we are creating our reality. And when I first came into Unity, I believed that jot and tittle, absolutely literally. I did. And then I kind of gravitated away, and I thought, well, you know, I'm not creating this table. That's presumptuous of me. I'm not creating this little stand here. But I'm creating what I think about it, okay? I'm creating my attitude, I'm creating my judgments, therefore I'm creating my experience of it. And I hung out in that dimension for a long time. But lately, I've gone back, all the way back to, yes, even this table. Even this table. And I go back to that because of quantum physics. In the quantum world, it is consciousness which draws from this unified field of intelligence and love. Our consciousness draws into manifestation exactly what we need in any given moment. And it is perfect, it is whole, and it is complete. And it's tailor-made for each one of us. You and I can be walking down the road, and we can see a flower, and have completely different experiences of it, just like one finger, two finger, three finger fist, right? So your reality is manifesting as an aspect of your consciousness at all times. That's how powerful we are as spiritual beings. Now that's scary. You know, I was thinking about that this morning as I'm sitting up in my bed having my coffee and meditating and thinking, okay, what's the message, God? What's the message? And I see this horrendous pile of shoes over in the floor, and I'm thinking, what does that say about my consciousness? Well, it says in the inner sanctum of my home, the front looks really good. You know, it's always clean in case somebody drops by, but you go down the hall and around the corner and into my bedroom, and it's like, all right. So it means in the very inner part of me, there is a lot of, I won't say disorganization, I'll say there's a lot of stuff that's creative. You know, it's a creative pile. And from that, I pick and choose and create what I look like when I step out of that room and into the rest of the world. So in the center of your being, there is your soul that is always drawing into manifestation something to bless you. And I just encourage you that if it's challenging, that if it's painful at times, that this unconditional divine presence that is life itself equips you with everything you need to deal with it, to see deeply into it, and to do whatever needs to be done or become whoever you need to be in order to be at peace with it and to be at harmony with it. Once we learn that this is our world and we have spiritual dominion, we can begin to walk around this planet decreeing a thing, feeling the faith in our soul, hope in our mind, love in our hearts, and calling it forth. You know, because the unified field is intelligent and is the vibration of love, we access it through our heart space. So it's not just enough to understand these principles, although that's a good beginning. In order for our lives to shift into a new paradigm, and incidentally the paradigm that humanity is evolving into rather rapidly, it's an experience of the heart. The heart is far more intelligent than the brain. Science has shown that the heart actually has configurations of neurons, just as the brain does. And the power of the heart radiates up to 10 feet around an individual. It is this love energy that taps into the wisdom and love of God. We know it first in our hearts, and then our hearts inform our minds. But this happens so instantaneously that, and we're so accustomed when leading with our minds, that our minds will often discount it, override it, call us silly, talk us out of it. But we live in a world that is really, truly awesome. We don't have to struggle for wisdom. It's given to us if we just be still, take a breath, and tune into our hearts. That which we want to create, we can decree it to be so. And the more we cooperate with this heart energy and begin to align with the wisdom that is given us, begin to recognize it as the intuitive voice within, and have the courage to begin to live that way, the more we will see our spiritual power reinforced and come into manifestation. The power to attract our prosperity, make it real and sustainable. The power to heal ourselves and others. And the most important thing is the power to know joy, to really, truly know it. That takes courage. It takes guts. But I ran across a quote that I just love, and it's this: courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the small voice at the end of the day that says, I'll try again tomorrow. So that's another word: courage, commitment, to try again tomorrow, to stay with this program of spiritual unfoldment and development, this positive path for spiritual living. So we have context, and then we have the content of our lives. And we decree that content to be what it is. We decree a thing, and we make it so by our very consciousness. And when those two begin to align, when the context is all God, and the content begins to reflect the context, when the content of our lives begins to reflect the beauty of God, the grace of God, the ease and prosperity of God, then we get to the third C, and that is completion. We get to a point of completion, not in the sense that it's over and now I can rest. I get my harp and my wings and my own cloud and my own iPod with just the right kind of accompaniment. It's not completion in that sense. It's completion in that we begin to live in this moment as the eternal moment. And we begin to see there's nothing beyond this that we need. There's nothing that went before that can take away from this moment, and nothing that will come after that will make this moment any less beautiful than it is. We are complete in this now moment. Do you know, I believe it's Philippians chapter 1, verse 6, that said, I am confident that he who began a good work in you will bring you to completion in Christ Jesus. And what that means is the spiritual work that is calling you, that brought you here today, this yearning, desire to know more, to experience more, to be more, will continue to work in you. You don't have to work it. It's working you. Remember, you're not a human being looking for a spiritual experience. You're the spirit having a human experience. When you anchor yourself in that, that spirit is alive. It's like a cauldron. You know, one of my dearest friends said, well, actually, it was the Reverend Duke Tufty, who's the minister at Unity Temple on the Plaza. We were having a spiritual discussion in a class after church one day, and somebody said, we have a spark of divinity within us. And you never know what Duke's going to say. And he says, I disagree with that. And I went, kind of, you know. And he says, it's not a spark, it's a raging fire. I thought, right on. It's a raging fire within us. And it will have its way with us. And when we learn to trust it, to yield to it, to listen to that voice, to have the courage to stand in this place and just say, show me my wholeness, show me my perfection, the perfection of this moment, here and now, we will get what we ask for. And we will have entered a whole new dimension of living, a dimension that allows us to be free, and it allows us to be happy. It allows us to be generous. Oh, the joys of tipping 25% and not worrying about it, even if there's a little voice that says, don't go there, you can't. You can. You can. Because you are connected. You are more than connected. You are the raging fire. You are the passion of God, the eyes of God, the voice of God, the hands. You are the very expression of God here on earth. Step into that dominion. Have the courage to claim it. Remember, your context is a spiritual one. Your content shows up 100%. Every person, you're only here because I summoned you. And I'm here because you summoned me. It's, you know. And what you think of me is none of my business. You've heard that, and it's true. Because the experience that I'm having is uniquely mine. And when it's a context of a blessing and the love of God showing up, everything comes to bless me. So, context, content, oh blessed completion in this moment. God bless you.